Chapter 961. Colin immediately snuffed out the cigarette he was holding. He had a panicked expression on his face. After all, he had always maintained a goody-two-shoes image before Olivia. Even though she already knew that he was a member of Toxic Hive and there were no good people in that organization, he was good at concealing his true personality. "Olivia, did you hear anything?" Olivia clutched her stomach and said, "I have a stomach ache." "Where's the toilet? What were you two talking about?" She looked calm, so she probably didn't hear anything they said. Colin sighed in relief. "Does it hurt a lot? Do you need to get another examination?" "It's okay. We did an ultrasound just now. It should be fine. I'll head to the toilet first." "All right, Olivia, I'll help you to the toilet." Colin kept up the act of a polite young man despite already looking like an adult with no signs of adolescence. He always acted like a harmless little lamb before Olivia. Olivia went to the toilet and closed the door. As soon as she was out of sight, she clutched her chest. For a few years, she had known that Colin was a cold-hearted person. He was definitely not the innocent young man he appeared to be. On the other hand, Jack looked very emotionless, but he was able to look at the problem from her perspective. Olivia's palms were covered in sweat on the way to the toilet. It was as she thought. The treatment from a year ago was very effective. That was why she never relapsed. The tumor had shrunk to a size that it could be operated on. It meant that she had recovered a lot. Colin forged a false report to deceive her with the help of the doctors. She knew he did it for her sake. But it was like Jack said. She had a chance to save this baby's life. It was just like when she was pregnant with the twins. If she hadn't insisted on giving birth to the babies, they would have been dead. Olivia's muddled mind cleared up. She had made her decision. No matter how she felt about the father of the baby was still innocent. Since the baby was in her womb, she wouldn't give up on it. Olivia exited the toilet. Colin quickly went up to her. "Olivia, are you feeling better?" "Much better. But Colin, I've given it a lot of thought. I've decided to keep the baby." Colin didn't understand. "But Olivia, you're in bad shape." Colin, I know what condition I'm in. Stop lying to me." Colin sighed. "So you did hear everything. I knew you'd want to keep the baby." "Olivia, I didn't really want to lie to you. I was just looking out for you. Cancer is different from other illnesses. If it gets serious, no drug would be able to suppress it. But miracles happen, don't they? Some people didn't even need to take drugs or undergo chemotherapy. They got better after traveling around the world. Those miracles are 1 in a million. The chances are too slim. I don't want to gamble with your future. It's my choice. I won't blame anyone for whatever happens. Colin, I know you're looking out for me. Why don't you give me a hand?" Colin looked at Olivia with a surprised expression. "Olivia, what do you want me to do?" "I'll do anything in my power to help you." "Colin, I want to learn more about medicine." "No problem. I want to join Toxic Hive." Chapter 962. 3 months had gone by. Ethan had tried countless ways to find Olivia but to no avail. He even tried to locate her by tracking Joel. He had thought Olivia would contact the Golden Medical Institute to further her studies because of Rufus. That way, he would be able to know where she was and how she was doing, even if he couldn't see her on a daily basis. He didn't want things to be the way they were. He didn't have any news on her whereabouts. Ethan was smoking non-stop in his room. Henry was downing glass after glass of alcohol. The atmosphere was incredibly stress-inducing. It took Henry 3 whole months to understand his feelings toward Everly. She wasn't a plaything to her. But even if he understood that, Everly was still nowhere to be found. Even if he wanted to threaten her with her family, he couldn't even get in contact with her. He had no way of getting to her, and that made him feel helpless. Ethan was missing Olivia. Although she was safer away from him, he had lost her completely. He couldn't help but wonder if he had made the right choice. Henry sneered when he saw Ethan's brooding expression. "Now that things have come to this, are you happy now?" "Honestly, I thought I'd feel better about this." Ethan snuffed his cigarette, picked up a bottle of wine, and started chugging it down. "I miss her. I miss the kids." Henry sneered. I told you. You're a self-righteous bastard. Henry didn't care if Ethan wanted to set Olivia free. But why did they have to take Everly with them? He thought about Everly every time he closed his eyes. He could feel her presence in every corner of the office. There were also traces of their intimate moments all over the house. After Everly's departure, other women tried to get close to him. But his anger would flare up whenever he saw them. He finally realized that Everly had become irreplaceable for him. The world was a big place. If Olivia and company changed their identities and hid in desolate places, finding them would be very hard. These two very powerful men were at a loss for what to do. Olivia's foster parents had already passed. She didn't have anyone else she cared about. As for Ethan, he was the final tie she severed. From then on, she was completely free to go anywhere and do anything. Ethan couldn't do anything as years passed. 1 year, 2 years, 3. He still couldn't forget about Olivia. She was like a wound on his heart that never healed. He would feel a pang in his heart whenever he thought about her. His position was even more stable after 3 years. It was finally time for him to kick off the final stages of his 10-year plan. In the 3 years that Olivia wasn't with him, Ethan was able to do a lot of things without reservations. His methods became cold-blooded. He would do anything to accomplish his goals. Ethan was wearing a mask with a ghost design as he led his men to take down the base of operations in Shadow Valley. The place was thrown into chaos. Mr. Miller, we only managed to capture the second in command. Golden Shark managed to escape via a hidden route. This pufferfish was the one behind the incident in the financial district back then. Ethan looked at the man who lay next to his feet. The man had a long scar on his face. Ethan was the one who left it there. It's you, Sova, you bastard. We trusted you 10 years ago, yet you betrayed us. And now, you're doing it again. Ethan sneered under his mask. You're all murderers and drug smugglers. You've harmed countless families. People like you deserve a fate worse than death. It's time to settle the score from 3 years ago. Don't worry, I'll give you an honorable death. Ethan took his foot off the man and said to Brent, cut off his head and post the picture to the dark web. Chapter 963. Ethan's identity was exposed on the dark web 3 years ago, and a lot of his enemies sought him out after that. Some of them knew they couldn't kill Ethan, so they plotted against Miller Group. All of a sudden, many of the company's subsidiaries were met with major issues. The public didn't know what was wrong. They thought it was just some sort of corporate espionage. The Miller family was one of the richest families in the country. Who could possibly have the courage to cross them? Ethan's businesses all across the country were in trouble, but he was unfazed. He checked his leads one by one. Other than some shadowy organizations, there were also some wealthy families who were trying to get a piece of the pie. They planned to split the Miller family's riches once they had toppled the Millers. Ethan personally led his forces to destroy every single shadowy organization he dug up. Everyone in the organizations would be handed over to the authorities. The leaders were beheaded, and their pictures were subsequently uploaded to the dark web. He would even number every one of those pictures. Instead of becoming the prey, Ethan was the hunter. He was hunting everyone who had a hand in the attack on Miller Group. In the past, Ethan still had a conscience. He didn't try to build a monopoly in business. The main reason was that the Miller family had amassed considerable wealth over several hundred years. The money they had would last for dozens of generations to come. Ethan was born into immense wealth, so he never really cared about money. Besides, he had been serving his country and taking down any potential threats that could harm the country. He protected his country in secret. Even though it was dangerous, it was more meaningful than earning money as a businessman. Even when he was doing business, he made sure to leave profits for everyone else. The other companies weren't really grateful for his benevolence, however. Instead, they tried to make Ethan's attitude change a lot after Olivia's departure. He didn't pull his punches when dealing with the people who made moves against Miller Group. With the help of the Lions, Moors, and Cinders, Ethan was able to defeat everyone who opposed him. He seized the resources from his opposition and redistributed them. Suddenly, every one of the major companies in Aldenvine and the surrounding cities started to be wary and afraid. In 3 years, Over 20 families went bankrupt because of Ethan. These families had companies in the real estate industry, smart technology industry, microchip industry, financial sector, and more. Ethan began to expand his business. He was like an ambitious tyrant who conquered all his adversaries no matter where he went. In his words, some people would only become submissive after being roughed up. He could ensure that nothing would go wrong if everything was under his control. After he made his moves, Aldenvine was finally completely under the control of the Miller family. The Kingston family probably had it worse. They were a family of politicians and military men. Although they had some businesses, they had always kept their heads down. They held a special position in Aldenvine. Most people wouldn't dare to cross them. In the past, Ethan steered clear of them as well. After being shot on the streets and having his identity exposed, Ethan dropped the act. He stopped playing nice and targeted the Kingston family. The Kingstons had no way to win against him, so the Miller family stood at the top. Right now, another one of the shadowy organizations was taken down. The head of Shadow Valley's second-in-command, Pufferfish, was posted onto the dark web. His lifeless eyes stared into the camera. The picture struck fear into Ethan's enemies. Those who hadn't crossed Ethan felt relieved, while those who had crossed him trembled in fear. Even Shadow Valley had fallen in Ethan's hands. None of them were safe. He was a terrifying foe. Chapter 964. Ethan's combat uniform was stained with blood. It was mostly the blood of his enemies. There were only some minor injuries on his arm. It was like he felt no pain. He had lost track of Olivia for 3 whole years. He had become a monster that was out for blood. Golden Shark ran. Doesn't matter. All of his bases have been destroyed. He's just a rat scurrying around. Where else can he possibly go? Ethan said with a bloodthirsty smile. Mr. Miller, your arm is wounded. It's nothing. Ethan looked at the tiny cut on his arm. A woman had cut him with a dagger. The woman resembled Olivia a little. That was why he got distracted when he was about to shoot her. He couldn't help but look at her eyes for a little while longer. He felt a sharp pain in his arm when he was distracted. It was like he was bitten by a venomous snake. He killed the woman and left emotionlessly. Getting hurt was very normal for people like him, so he didn't really care about the injury. But the area around the wound was changing color. Ethan blacked out before he could say anything else. Mr. Miller. His men took off his mask and saw his pale lips. He's been poisoned. That cursed golden shark. He left this trap for Mr. Miller. He left a woman who looked like Mrs. Miller here just for this. The dagger must have been coated in lethal poison. It's been 3 years, but Mr. Miller still can't forget about Mrs. Miller. His emotions will get the better of him someday. Meanwhile, 2 people were sitting face to face in a villa. One of them was a handsome and well-built man. He looked very elegant as he held a wine glass. He was Yale Kingston, the man who had been competing with Ethan over the years. Ethan had been like a raging beast for the past 3 years. The Kingston family was on the verge of ruin. The other man was Golden Shark, who had gotten away. He had a vicious look on his face. There was also a scar on his eyebrow. They did it. Yale threw away the glass he was holding. That bastard, Sova, killed so many of my people. He destroyed everything I've built. He's getting off too easy. Golden Shark still had a lot of pent-up frustration. On the other hand, Yale was emotionless. Calm down, Mr. Golden Shark. You can always get more merchandise and manpower. As long as you're still alive, you can build everything up again. Ethan's death would mean you'd be able to live in peace without constant threat. You came up with such a brilliant idea. Never would I have thought the legendary Sova would fall at the hands of a woman. It's a pity that the woman has disappeared for so long. I would have killed her otherwise. Finding a woman who looked like her took a lot of effort. Golden Shark asked, does that poison really work? Don't worry, he'll definitely die in 72 hours. The poison will spread throughout his body from his veins. It'll kill him when it reaches his heart. I want him to writhe and experience pain that's worse than death. Golden Shark picked his glass up again. As long as we're rid of him, the world will be ours for the taking. Here's to a fruitful partnership, Mr. Golden Shark. Cheers. Golden Shark's anger slowly dissipated. He left in his jeep after he drank his fill. There was another woman with him. She looked a little like Olivia too. Yale made a lot of preparations to find women who looked like Olivia. When Golden Shark learned about Ethan's undying love for Olivia, he asked Yale for some of those women. In his drunken stupor, Golden Shark vented his sexual desire on the woman in the car. "I'll fuck you hard, you damn bitch." The car screeched to a halt when it drove past some banana trees. Chapter 965. Golden Shark yelled angrily, "Why did you stop the car? Boss, there seems to be a corpse in front of us. Why are you overreacting? Just drive over it." Golden Shark didn't stop what he was doing. The woman who was being assaulted by him was begging for mercy. The driver took a closer look and said with a shaky voice, "Boss, it looks like Mr. Pufferfish's body." They had already gotten news of Pufferfish being beheaded by Ethan. They even saw the picture on the dark web. The headless corpse in front of their car was indeed Pufferfish. Nonsense. His body is hundreds of miles away from us. How could it show up here? The driver stepped out of the car to examine the body. The body had been dead for quite some time. There was a dragon tattoo on the arm. Tears began streaming down the driver's face. "Boss, this is Mr. Pufferfish. I was there when he got this tattoo." Golden Shark felt a chill when he looked at the corpse. He quickly stopped fooling around with the woman and pulled up his pants. "Why is his body here? Someone must be playing tricks on us. Let's get out of here now." As soon as he said that, the 5 cars that were following behind exploded simultaneously. He saw someone walking toward them from the flames. It was a slender figure in black, form-fitting attire. The figure was very curvaceous. It was a woman. Who are you?" Golden Shark drew his pistol fearfully. He was covered in sweat due to the fear. The bright flames were shining into his eyes, so he couldn't see the expression on the woman's face. He heard a loud crack when he raised his pistol. The woman had broken his arm, and his pistol fell to the ground. The driver took the chance to fire at the woman. He saw a silver flash and then felt a sharp pain in his chest. When he looked, he saw a dagger stuck in his chest. The driver went down while coughing up blood. Golden Shark was no stranger to dangerous situations, but what was happening was too bizarre. With the arm broken, he wanted to run away. Another gunshot sounded, and the bullet hit his knee. No matter which part of his body moved, it would be met with a gunshot. In the span of around 10 seconds, he was shot 5 to 6 times. Golden Shark slumped to the ground. "Who are you? Did Ethan send you?" The woman slowly approached him. The dead leaves crunching underneath her feet sent shivers down Golden Shark's back. As she got closer, Golden Shark noticed that she was wearing a mask. There was a picture of a fox on the mask, and the fox had gleaming red lips. It was chilling to look at. The woman looked down at him and said in a sweet voice, "Mr. Golden Shark, I'm Septem." Golden Shark looked at the woman in shock. She was the devilish woman who emerged from the Isle of Hell 6 months ago. The trials of selection had always been extremely cruel. Only a handful of people would survive the trials each time. Things were different this time. Everyone died except for her. According to rumors, the people she killed died gruesome deaths. Her methods were very effective. She was known as the She-Devil. After the trials ended, many organizations bid for her. In the end, the Black Ravens got her with an extremely high bid. She didn't disappoint either. She achieved impressive results and became an S-rank assassin after 6 months. Why are you here? Why else? There's a bounty on your head. Who? I'll pay you double. No, I'll pay you 10 times the amount. Please let me go. I have the money. I have a lot of money. I'll give you everything I have. The woman suddenly took off her mask. Golden Shark's eyes widened like he saw a ghost. It's you. Blood splattered, and Septem beheaded Golden Shark with a smile. And that was the 100th kill. Chapter 966. The summer weather was hot. The sun was like a fireball that was roasting the earth. The wooden door was opened. Chris walked in dejectedly, and Brent quickly asked, "How is it?" "Not good. I took some blood samples for testing. Mr. Miller is poisoned with a rare toxin, likely extracted from several highly poisonous substances. Were you able to determine what toxins they are? I've asked the testing department to work as quickly as they can to identify them. We might not be able to deal with them even if we identify them. I could only inject him with some medication to slow the toxins from spreading to his heart. Isn't Mr. Miller usually very cautious? Why did he get so careless this time? Kelvin sighed. It was those bastards. Plot. They intentionally found a woman who looked like Mrs. Miller. As you know, Mr. Miller might not have said anything, but he has been missing Mrs. Miller like crazy. He'd personally fly over every time people reported sightings of Mrs. Miller. But it was just false hope every time. This is a tricky situation. If we don't find a way, we can only watch as Mr. Miller. I've informed the military doctor. Dr. Tucker will be coming personally. He should be here soon. Ethan's body had been corroded by the poison. The pain spread from his veins to every corner of his body. It left him in excruciating pain. A dark red pattern appeared on his skin and was spreading from his limbs. Joel rushed over with his men. His expression paled when he saw the red pattern. How did he get poisoned with this toxin? You know what this is. This is the ninefold venom. Joel looked on guard. This is created with toxins extracted from 9 extremely deadly poisonous things. People afflicted with this poison only have 72 hours to live. A dark red pattern would appear like this. His life will end when the pattern reaches his heart. It's after all, Ethan was a very capable fighter, and few people were able to even lay a hand on him. Why would he give his enemies a chance to hurt him? Golden Shark found a woman who looked like Mrs. Miller to distract him. That's why. That bitch again. I knew she was bad luck. Crystal said angrily. Don't badmouth Liv. Ethan struggled to get up. He was being ravaged by the poison, but he still couldn't allow others to speak ill of Olivia. Tears flowed down Crystal's face. Sova, even in that state, you're defending her. Brent looked at Joel and asked, Mr. Tucker, how can we help Mr. Miller? Have you identified the toxins? Yes, we have. Chris handed him the report that he had just received. Are you able to save him since we've identified the toxins? No, I can't. We need to go to Elora village, Joel said urgently. Where is that? It's an ancient village with many people who are skilled in the art of poison. We have to find the people there to save him. They might have a way to cure him. Crystal didn't expect the situation to be so dire. Mr. Tucker, what about me? You have to come along. We'll need your blood. Let's not waste any more time. We need to go now, or we might be too late. Chapter 967. Elora Village was an ancient village on the outskirts of a primeval forest. It wasn't governed by any counties. Since poisonous plants and insects surrounded it, people rarely ventured to the village. In the past, Joel was brought into the village by his mentor. He could still remember how to enter the village. There was a layer of miasma surrounding the village. There were cliffs and precipices to the northern side. If regular people tried entering the village, they would either be killed by poisonous insects or the miasma. Joel had prepared the group in advance, so everyone wore protective suits and gas masks. They entered the village boldly while carrying Ethan. Ethan's condition was worsening by the minute. He was slowly becoming delirious. It was the first time Kelvin had been to a place like this. He felt uneasy even though he was fully protected. He could still see the venomous snakes and scorpions circling them. Brother, do you hear hissing sounds? Brent was next to Ethan. He said calmly, there are a lot of venomous snakes in this area. It's only natural to hear hissing sounds. But I feel like this is different from the others. You're just imagining it. Kelvin trudged on jumpily. He would rather go digging up bodies at a mass grave than be here with all the venomous creatures. Suddenly, a spider, which was larger than his fist, fell from a tree overhead. Oh my God! Brent could feel his head throbbing. We're close to a tropical forest. It's only natural for the creatures here to be larger. Have you never watched any videos about animals? There was even a sighting of a giant anaconda over 100 feet long in the Mucharian region. Brent didn't know how to feel. His brother was still so jumpy despite his age. Suddenly, Kelvin was frozen in place. He asked shakily, Brent, are you talking about that? What did you see this time? Brent wanted to yell at Kelvin again, but he raised his head to see a hulking figure emerging from the miasma. Kelvin's legs started trembling. Is this the legendary Hydra? I told you not to read useless books. Hydras aren't real. That has to be a python. It isn't venomous. As soon as he said that, the snake got close. A giant red snake revealed itself to them. Brent, does that look like a python to you? It's clearly a venomous snake. Brent was rendered speechless. As expected, a strange place like this defied logic. Brent remained calm. After all, they were armed with modern weapons. Be on guard, guys. Be ready to fire. Such a large snake was not only venomous, but it could also swallow a person whole. It was way more terrifying than the regular snakes and scorpions. Joel raised his hand. Wait, don't attack without reason. You might agitate it. The snake bunched itself up and observed the group. It didn't seem hostile. Then, it started to drum its tail on the ground and flick its tongue. It was clearly collecting information on them. Oh no, it's preparing to attack. Brace yourselves and protect Mr. Miller. Kelvin gulped as the snake was about to attack. As soon as the snake moved, a mysterious tune could be heard coming from the forest. It didn't sound like any sort of musical instrument. The snake calmed down visibly after hearing it. In such a tense situation, they saw someone emerging from the mist. It was a child, a short, young girl. She was wearing clothes made with colorful fabric. There was a weird accessory around her neck too. She was holding a leaf. The tune was coming from the leaf. The red snake began to approach the girl. Kelvin instinctively called out, "Be careful." Then, he saw the snake propping the girl up. Chapter 968. Mist, forest, giant snake, and young girl. A beam of light shone through the gigantic tree and fell on the girl. She had skin pale as snow, and her face was exquisite. Her eyes were actually green, and her features were well defined. She was dressed in simple and colorful clothes. The weird thing was she wasn't wearing shoes and was completely barefoot. Around her ankles, she wore two anklets made of multicolored threads adorned with small bells. She was a pretty little girl who exuded an ancient and mysterious aura. She sat on the giant red snake. The girl didn't have the innocence of children her age. She looked down at the group of people, condescendingly like a goddess. The beam of light shining on her made her look even more otherworldly, like a saint of legends. She looked at the group cautiously as if asking why they were there. Joel quickly explained, "Young lady, we have a patient who's inflicted with lethal poison. We need to enter the village for a cure. Please let us through. We come in peace, and we won't hurt anyone." The girl didn't reply. She patted the snake on the head. It understood what she wanted immediately. The snake brought her toward the stretcher Ethan was on. Both Kelvin and Brent felt chills down their spines when they saw that. But their duty compelled them to stand their ground. As the snake approached, its massive size and bright red scales looked even more terrifying. The girl got down from the snake and went up to Ethan. He was also covered in protective clothing. She saw his tightly shut eyes through the visor. Kelvin lifted a part of Ethan's clothes, revealing the red pattern on his skin. "My employer is infected with ninefold venom. He only has one more day to live. If we can't save him soon, he'll be a goner. Young lady, please let us into the village. We really harbor no ill intent." The girl remained silent. She caressed the snake's head and left while blowing on the leaf. The snakes and other venomous creatures quickly dispersed. Joel said delightedly, "Let's get a move on. She has allowed us to enter the village." The group was overjoyed. Fortune was finally on their side. Ethan would definitely be saved. The girl sat on the snake, which slithered along very quickly. But the sound from her leaf was leading the way. It came from one direction and led them out of the forest. When they arrived at the village, the group felt like they had stumbled upon paradise. The village was situated near the equator. The average temperature was around 77 degrees Fahrenheit all year long. Vegetables and fruits can be grown in all seasons. Even the flowers could bloom without withering. There was a stream running in the village. The houses were all built with wood or bamboo. Flowers were blooming everywhere. Kelvin had been to many countries and islands, but none were like this. The temperature was perfect, and the air was fresh. There were wild animals running around. The girl waited for them on a slope. The giant red snake had disappeared. The village was very clean. There were no snakes or other venomous creatures to be seen. It was like the animals and humans had a pact. The humans wouldn't hurt the animals, and the animals guarded the humans. Let's go. We've really met a benefactor today. Chapter 969. The girl was young, but she was obviously well respected. The villagers who walked past her would greet her. Brent noticed that they didn't treat her like a child. They were very respectful when they talked to her. They would stand up straight and pay respects to her. The girl would nod lightly, but she always remained silent. The group followed her to a bamboo forest. She signaled for them to stop moving. Then, she entered the bamboo forest alone. There was a stream next to the bamboo forest and a stone bridge that looked very exquisite. They saw a gigantic tree a short distance away. It looked like it had been there for over a century. There were some red ribbons hanging on the tree with tiny bells attached to them. They would chime when the winds blew. There weren't any fancy decorations, but it was very cozy. Crystal whispered, as the young lady mute. Joel glared at her. Shut up before you find yourself in trouble. Brent pointed at a glimpse of red that was a short distance from them. Crystal felt her skin crawl when she saw the dark green eyes. That was the giant red snake they saw in the forest. It had been following them all along. After a while, an old lady came out of a wooden hut. Joel quickly went up to her. Your Aunt Wendy. I'm Joel. You saved my life before. Do you remember me? Wendy was quite old but quick on her feet, and her eyes were bright. She didn't exhibit the typical signs of aging, like blurry vision and hearing loss. She wore an outfit similar to the girls. Her white hair was held in place with a hairpin. She looked energetic and carefree. Oh, hi, Joel. 40 years just passed in the blink of an eye, didn't it? You're still the same. I told you, you wouldn't grow any taller. Joel blushed at the memory. At that time, he was severely poisoned, and his teacher brought him here when he was only in his teens. Back then, Wendy was in her 40s. She was still in her prime and looked younger than other people her age. She had a fiery temper. After curing him, she told him that he would never grow taller again. Joel drank a lot of milk and played a lot of basketball after he returned home. But his height remained at around 5.5 feet. He was shorter than the younger people in the group, like Brent. Aunt Wendy, you haven't changed a bit. It's nice to see you. Can you please save this kid? He's been poisoned with ninefold venom. Wendy sighed. This is a tough one. Ninefold venom is a combination of 9 toxins. If I get even one of them wrong, the antidote might become poison too. It would only speed up his demise. Chris quickly took out the examination report and said, Madam Wendy, please help us out. We've already identified the toxins. Please take a look. We'll get you whatever you need for the antidote. Alright, bring him in. I'll take a look. They quickly brought Ethan into a hut. Take off his shirt for me. Yes, ma'am. Crystal was about to do it, but Brent and Kelvin didn't give her the chance to do so. They quickly removed the protective clothing that Ethan was wearing. Joel rolled up Ethan's sleeves and unbuttoned the top of his shirt. The red pattern had already spread to his shoulders and his abdomen. He only had 1 day left. He doesn't have much time left, Wendy said softly. Yeah, it took us 1 day to get here. Aunt Wendy, he's very important to me. I'll do whatever you want if you can save his life. Wendy took off Ethan's gas mask. His face was covered with the red pattern too. She was momentarily stunned when she saw his face. Chapter 970. Crystal noticed the change in Wendy's expression and hurriedly asked, Madam Wendy, do you know him? Wendy's gaze shifted between Crystal's and Ethan's faces. What's your relationship with him? I'm his fiancé. Please, save him. He means the world to me. I can't imagine life without him. If you need blood, take mine. We have the same blood type. Crystal responded before Brent or the others could speak up. Brent and the others frowned. They thought it was inappropriate for her to answer so arbitrarily. But Ethan's life was on the line at the moment, so now wasn't the time to address such issues. Do you love him a lot? Wendy asked. Joel couldn't help but feel like something was off with Wendy's expression. Yes, I've loved him for many years. I'll save him even if it costs me my life. What a pair of star-crossed lovers. Wendy almost clapped her hands. It's just a shame that I can't save him. You'll have to seek help elsewhere. Then, she waved her hand and asked them to leave. Willow stood at the side and gazed at Ethan's face for a moment before reaching out and tugging on Wendy's clothes. It seemed as if she was pleading for her help. Wendy gently held the girl's hand and said, "Willow, we can't save this person. Let's send them away." Ethan seemed to have sensed something and struggled to open his eyes to look in their direction. However, his vision had been impaired by the virus. He could only see a hazy image of an elderly lady holding Willow, who was looking back at him. But he couldn't see the child's face. Joel chased after them because he felt that Wendy's attitude had changed too drastically. "I'm begging you, Aunt Wendy. Please save him. It's not that I don't want to help you, Joel. But you're also a medical student. You should know how deadly ninefold venom is. Besides, what else can I do when he's already in such bad shape? Aunt Wendy, there must be a way. There's still a day left. Please, at least give it a shot. Give it a shot. Why would I do that? What am I to do if he dies during my treatment? Enough is enough. Our village does not welcome outsiders. Stop wasting your time and leave at once." Wendy then slammed the door shut on Joel. His nose would have been hit if he hadn't dodged in time. He wasn't imagining things. Wendy was genuinely upset. But what had gone wrong? Wendy had initially agreed to help. Joel was perplexed by her abrupt shift in attitude. He returned to the room dejectedly. "Mr. Tucker, what did she say?" Brent hurriedly asked. "Aunt Wendy refuses to help." "Why? Didn't she say she'd give it a shot? Why did she leave without doing anything? I'm not sure as well. I'll go and plead with her." Crystal then rushed outside and knelt at Wendy's doorstep. "Madam Wendy, I'm begging you, please save my fiancé. I love him. We went through so much to be together. I can't lose him. If you don't save him, I'll kneel herein." The door swung open. Crystal looked at Wendy expectantly. She thought Wendy had been moved by her sincerity. However, Wendy picked up a bucket of water and poured it all over Crystal without hesitation. "Stop yapping. How dare you guilt-trip me? I don't care if you want to kneel or even hang yourself. Just don't do it here."